like to once again talk a little bit about my friend Rick Sammon. Uh, as I said, he's always inspired me for many, many years. He's a pro photographer, educator, and author of an incredible 43 books on photography, nearly 50 online classes. And to say this guy is busy and loves digital imaging is an understatement. But wait, there's more. He's actually just published his 44th book. I was told this morning that today is actually a really special day because Rick's new ebook, Wild Wanderers Across Enchanted Realms, just went on sale on Amazon. So again, it's his 44th book. I don't know where he finds the time. But one of the things I like about this book is that it really is going to hopefully inspire and carry an important message for everybody about how important it is to protect our world's wildlife habitats. So definitely, if you get a chance, go on Amazon, check it out, and get inspired right alongside with Rick and Susan. Um, as I said, I've known Rick for a number of years. I'm a huge fan, and this was taken many years ago, and I of course still have the book on my bookshelf behind me here. But I've enjoyed talking with Rick, learning from him, reading his books, being inspired by his videos, and I'm thrilled today to welcome him to the SlickPic Academy and hear what he has to teach us about, really how to take professional caliber, professional quality photos with the smartphone that everybody carries in their pocket. So, Rick, welcome. Where are you hailing from today?
Well, we're in Croton-on-Hudson, New York, where it's 40 degrees, so I could go for a bicycle ride after this. But you look pretty good in shorts, my friend. And that book was published in 2002.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a while ago. So
That
thank you
was a
so
little
much.
bit.
And thank you guys for having me. I love SlickPics. This new site I have, I'll be showing some pictures for that. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for about an hour or so. So I can share my screen and we can get going right away if that's good for you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to share the screen. Keynote, share. I think it's going. And how does that look? Can
Looks
you see it?
great. Yeah.
Can we turn off that ringing like every time someone joins, or should I just take my headphones off?
For 1 second.
This is Antarctica, by the way, where I just came back from. I could take my headphones off if it's okay. Just let me know.
Okay, done.
Okay, great. Thank you. So anyway, today's presentation is called Create Pro Quality Photographs with Your Smartphone. Well, that was the first title I came up with, but then, I don't really use my phone too much from my phone. So I thought, another title might be Create Pro Quality Photographs with Your Flat Screen Camera, because that's really what it is for me. It's like, like we have flat screen TVs. So I'm searching for like another term. So maybe you guys can help me out, email me or email my friends at SlickPics, your idea for what we can actually call these cool devices. Another idea I had is create pro quality photographs with your pocket view camera. Excuse me, because this is really what this is. Ansel Adams used a view camera. And for me, I think this is seriously, I don't, I take my work seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously. Seriously, though, I think one of the big advantages of using the iPhone and the S23, the Samsung S23 Ultra, which I have, is that you're not removed from the scene. When you're shooting with the mirrorless camera, when you're shooting with the digital SLR camera, you're peering through the viewfinder and you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the scale, you're checking the histogram, you're doing all this stuff. So you're a little distracted from what I think is the most important thing in photography, which is composition, next to the mood and the feeling, capturing gesture, but you're not removed from the scene. So over on the left, I'm camelback riding in Morocco. The blue city Morocco is up on the top there. Then I was down in Antarctica also with my two cameras. But seriously, I think this is a big advantage that, especially when you're photographing people, if you're basically hiding behind a camera, you're not really relating to the people so much. So in this talk, I'm going to give you some of my tips, tricks, and techniques for photographing with an iPhone. Now, as Kevin knows, who's known me for a long time, I've known him since the Nick days, the Nick Color Effects, Silver Effects Pro, and the Nick Collection days. Everyone who comes to one of my sessions is a student for life. So, and I actually answer every email someone sends me. And if anyone's listening who sent me an email, they'll vouch for that. Now, I can't answer everyone on Facebook, through my SlickPic website, on Instagram, and everywhere, but I do answer every emails. So, we can ask questions here. We're going to be answering some questions after, right, Kevin and Sam?
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you're too shy, some people think, oh, this question is too silly, which it's not. No question is too basic. No question is too silly. You can email me for the rest of my life. So anyway, Antarctica. This is amazing. People say, okay, you're going to Antarctica. You're going to be taking some wide-angle shots of the blue ice. And by the way, the reason I go to Antarctica, there is nice wildlife there, but I'm in love with the blue ice. The blue ice formations are just fantastic. And there's a big difference between taking a picture and making a picture. So I'm directing the Zodiac driver, go left, go right, go forward, go backward, until we're in the one right position to get the best possible shot for me, which may not be the best possible shot for others or for you. And I have what I call my one picture promise. And this is my promise to you. Again, thanks for joining us today. And here's the promise that if you're in a situation like this and you say to yourself, if I could only take one picture when it comes to composition, when it comes to exposure, when it comes to the lens setting, what would that one picture be? I do promise you get a more creative picture, and you'll have fewer outtakes, and you won't have to go through, hundreds of thousands of pictures. So that's my one picture promise. So anyway, people say, oh, you're going to get nice pictures of the blue ice. And then they said, you're going to Tanzania, you're going to take your smartphones. Look at this picture. Even on your big screen, you could see every whisker of this beautiful, leopard in the tree. And actually, those of you who've been to Tanzania, that this is the shot you want to get. You want to get a shot of a leopard in the tree. So we're going to be going to Antarctica today. We're going to travel there. We're going to be traveling to Tanzania, place closer to home, the Oregon coast, which is a fantastic place to take landscape pictures. This is Abandoned Beach over there on the left. If you tilt your head to the side and look up, that's what's called Face Rock. And the weather changes there so quickly. So if you go, and I do hope you go, just be prepared for the weather changing quickly. I'm going to take you to, or bring you to, actually, Croton-on-Hudson, New York, where I live. This is the spillway of the New Croton Dam. It's actually the third largest stone structure in the world. Great Wall of China being one, and the pyramids being the other. And the reason it's a handmade stone structure, in other words, it wasn't made by machines. We're also going to explore some apps. Susan Salmon got me into apps a while ago. Apps, for me, well, look at Ansel Adams. Part of it was taking the picture, and then a lot of it was processing. And he said pictures never done. So he would go back and back. And then a painter would do this too, by the way. Da Vinci would go back on his paintings and paint over some of the things he wanted to change. So I take pictures, then I go back again and again, and I try to see, how can I improve the picture? So over there on the left, I took this picture last week when some friends were here. This is a handheld 10-second exposure. Handheld, no neutral density filter, no tripod. If you haven't tried the Reheld app by Reflex, check it out. There's another app called Even Longer that you could take actually up to a 24-hour exposure, but you can't take a 10-second handheld exposure. I don't know. This is magic. So anyway, nice enough picture, but another one of the apps I really like is Dramatic Black and White, talking about Ansel Adams. Ansel Adams said, when it comes to black and white, contrast is king. And if you look at the picture on the left, there's not a lot of contrast. Picture in the middle, there's a lot of contrast. And the shadows are nice and dark. Some people might say they're too blocked up, but you look at Ansel Adams' pictures of Half Dome, you see those shadows are just about as blocked up as that. So it's all subjective, by the way. And then I went to the PS Photoshop camera app. This is amazing. I put in this text. So I have a lot of fun with apps, and I think you could have a lot of fun with apps. And I did all this. I did all this while standing on the top of the dam and posting the pictures to Instagram, which I think is kind of amazing. Kind of amazing. We're also going to go down to Florida. Those of you who follow me know that I love music. I play guitar. The iPhone is amazing in low light. These are iPhone 14 Pro shots. Outdoors, we have this the silhouette, the reflection of the guitar in the little swimming pool there, and inside this is pretty low light. This looks like a spaceship. It's just so much fun to just travel light, not be removed from the scene, and get these kind of pictures. I'm also going to take you to Morocco, where I was in this past March. If I had a mirrorless camera and a camera bag and a tripod, I would have missed these shots. We're driving along the road, and I see these camels and these riders going over the sand dunes. Susan will tell you, I jumped out of the car and take my shoes off, and I'm running as fast as I can through the sand dunes. These pictures were taken about a minute apart, one looking into the sun and one looking away from the sun. All I had to do was point and shoot. Because I didn't have to think about, oh, what's my focus? What's my this? What's my that? What's my aperture? What's my shutter speed? Which we can change actually later, as I'll show you, and as some of you know. But I would have missed these shots. And because I'm shooting raw, I don't know if you can see on your screen, maybe it's an exaggeration that in the picture on the left, you can see every grain of sand, but it's pretty darn sharp. And we're going to be talking about shooting raw versus basically the iPhone JPEGs. Also going to take it to Death Valley. This is one of Susan Sammon shots. Here you definitely can see every grain of sand, basically because of the side lighting. Side lighting adds that nice contrast. Death Valley is a perfect place for iPhone photography. So before, my friends, I take to these places, I really want to thank my friends at SlickPic. So, as my mother told me, first impressions are important. And when you have a website, someone goes on your website, guess what? Think about what my mother said. First impressions are really important. So I put together some pictures, and my friends at SlickPic, basically Sam and his awesome crew, helped me design a layout. And these pictures actually scroll when you go on the site, which is really cool. They have all these different designs. I want people to know that this site says a lot about myself. There's an expression that the camera looks both ways. In picturing the subject, you're also picturing a part of yourself, which is really true. But this is the same with your work. When someone looks at your work, you're picturing a part of yourself. So the pictures that you put on your website, if you just put all landscape pictures, people say, oh, he or she's a landscape photographer. If you just put people pictures, oh, they're a people photographer, whatever. So I would suggest, I tell people my specialty is not specializing. That works for me. But I have friends, Jonathan and Angela Scott, or Franz Lanting, by the way, who's speaking at Photoclave. Do not miss his presentation. All the presentations are great. Scott Kelby, Frederick Van Johnson. But Franz Lanting, he specializes. So, whatever works for you, think about what you want your website to say. These are from more pictures from the bottom of the world, Antarctica, and South Georgia, which is relatively close to Antarctica. So I have these nice galleries, and then I also have a page for my workshops. We're going to Mongolia later this year. We have a couple of spots open. It's going to be perfect for iPhone photography. So if you look over there on the left, you could set up a menu, to promote and to share, what you want to share. So just one more thing about the site, SlickPic site. You get stunning galleries. I mean, the pictures look so good. They look so good. I work hard. To get, super sharp contrasty pictures, contrasty in some places. So anyway, the galleries look great. It's private and secure sharing. The portfolios, as you see, are cool. Okay, so for most of my pictures, I use my iPhone. I still have the iPhone 14. Susan, my wife, has the iPhone 15, but I'm keeping the 14 because I love it. And I love that it has, from the super wide to the 3x lens. If the 15 had the 5X, I would have gotten it, but it doesn't. So I use my Samsung Galaxy, which is not connected, by the way. not set up to make phone calls. That's why it's my flat screen camera, or my view camera. I use that for my 10x shot. So that camera has a 230 millimeter lens in it. Now, I'm going to talk more about this later, but I can upsize that easily. And you could upsize your pictures easily. So basically, when I'm traveling around, if I don't get a full frame shot, I say, okay, I have a 460 millimeter lens in my pocket. And I could go beyond that, and you can go beyond that. So anyway, I'm going to Antarctica, and people said, Rick, you are nuts. You've been a photographer for a long time. You have all this stuff. You have access to every lens, like camera on the planet. You're just going with your phones. And I said, yeah, because, I did a lot of tests. I knew I was going to get nice shots like this, like you saw before. And people have been going to Antarctica. This was taken on the ship that we were on. This guy on the bottom right, he had a lot to think about. And it's just like, a view camera where you put, one slide, one sheet of film in at a time. So I really challenged myself. But take a look at these smartphone pictures. Up on the top left, we have an S23 shot. You can see the whiskers. This is a Weddell seal from the Weddell Sea. You can see every whisker, and the pictures on the bottom have a slide on the next page. iPhone shots on the left and right, and an S23 shot, S23 Ultra shot in the middle. What's really cool, and why I knew why I was confident I would get good shots if we had good weather, is that the animals come really close. So just like in the Galapagos, the animals aren't afraid of people. There's a law, the IOTA law, which is a group of the international tour operators in Antarctica, IOTA, where you can't get closer than 15, you can't approach the animals closer than 15 feet. The thing is, the animals don't know the law. So they walk right up to you. The picture on the right, the guy, this king penguin was about 3 feet away from me, and same thing on the left, and the king penguins in the middle were a little further away. On the picture on the left and the right, the reason I have these there is I had a friend, Dick Zakia. I don't know if Kevin and Sam knew him. He was an instructor at RIT, and he had an expression like, and the expression was, use your camera like a spaceship. In other words, move it up and down, move it left and right, vary your composition. So in the picture on the left and right, I'm getting down really low, and I'm looking at the screen, which I would have had to have a mirrorless camera with the flip out screen. It would have been a little hard to get these type of shots. I'm just, waiting for these guys to walk up to me, and I'm getting down low, and I'm giving these king penguins a greater sense of power. Now the picture in the middle, I'm basically shooting straight on. So a tip here is really try to use your camera like a spaceship, and think about how that affects the viewer's perception of the subject in the picture. Sports Illustrated swimsuit model photographers usually shoot from a little lower angle to give the models a greater sense of power. If you're just shooting down on a subject, it looks like a snapshot. Check out these shots. These are smartphone pictures. How about a bird in flight shot? A bird, this is a cormorant on the bottom left. A bird in flight shot, a panning shot with the phone. This first seal over there on the right, he just jumped out of the water. He was not that happy to see me, as you could see. And the seal and the seals on the left, they were just, I think, saying hello, and the guy in the middle, and the picture in the middle. So this is the kind of pictures you can get if you do a lot of tests. And I am big on testing. So before I said, I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. Before I said, okay, I have the 230 millimeter lens, and I could upsize it. Well, I spend a lot of time processing. Ansel Adams would spend months, weeks, months, years processing a picture. So, and another person, what's her name? I forget the name of this photographer. I'll remember it eventually. She said, you can't spend too much time working on a picture because your soul is in the picture. Now, if you have a picture of your dog, a cat, a snapshot, a fun shot, or you're at the beach, your soul might not be in the picture. But for pictures that you really like and love, you don't feel bad about spending a lot of time. So I use Topaz Denoise, I use Topaz Sharpen AI, and to sharpen my pictures. And I use On1 the On1 Resize AI. I guess they're going to upgrade it. I saw the 2023 version. To upsize my picture. And I only, upsize two, maybe twice, maybe 4 times as big. But doing this, I'm getting the results that you've seen. So for me, for my type of photography, This is where it's at. My friend Glenn Dewis, who's a Photoshop world instructor, iPhone instructor, he's made 72-inch prints from his iPhone. Yes, he uses some of the same programs I do. And if you're serious about, your iPhone and smartphone and S23 photography, maybe some of you have the Google phones or some of the other phones out there, you really do need to spend some time processing, because the truth of the matter is the lens, the 10x lens in the S23 is not, the sharpest lens in the world. How can that 230 millimeter lens be as sharp as a $2,500 lens for a digital SLR? Well, with software, in a couple of seconds, maybe minutes, you can make it as sharp. Another thing people ask me about is, the files, how do you print your pictures? And they talk about file size. Well, this is interesting. These are all the same file size, and I was doing a test. So I sent the picture over on the left. You see, I wrote airdrop in there. I airdropped the picture to my computer. It was 5.2 megabytes. I sent the actual size file to my email. It was 7.5 megabytes. And I attached to a cable, and the file's 8.2 megabytes. It's all the same file. So if you're serious again about printing your pictures, this really has to do with printing, because on the web, no one's going to know the difference. You definitely want to transfer your pictures by cable, which is how I transfer my S23 photos. People ask how to get your S23 photos to your Mac. Plug in the cable and they show up in Photos. I mean, it's amazing. And speaking of amazing, this is South Georgia Island, where you see thousands of king penguin chicks backlit. How lucky was I to see this? I mean, we got off the ship, we get in the Zodiac, we cruise over the island, and we see this. And the dynamic range of the files are amazing, and the sharpness. You can see Tanzania, the whiskers there. And some people say, Rick, did you really take that with a smartphone? Well, what I do when they ask that, because they can't believe how sharp the pictures are, I bring them into Bridge. I do a screenshot of the data, of the metadata, and I send it to them. It's just, you could also get it by flipping up on the picture and getting the phone. But I do want to talk about the importance of testing. And I've been an iPhone photographer for more than 10 years, but I was brand new with the S23. And I have to thank Eric Kuna from KelbyOne. He convinced me to get the S23. So I'm doing tests. I'm on my morning walk. I go for a morning walk every day, and a bike ride, and a row in our pond in the backyard to try to stay healthy at my age. I was doing a lot of tests. Then we went to a local farm with the S23 Ultra. So I'm testing the 6x lens, and then here's a shot with the 10x lens. So I'm testing. This is super important to do. Susan, help me out. There's me actually just mentioned the pond. I'm in the rowboat, and I'm seeing how sharp. I'm testing for sharpness. Now, there are, graphs and charts you could buy off eBay to see, if your lens is sharp. I'm not going to photograph that in real life. So I want to see how sharp these are. So I'm testing the different lenses. But I think this is really interesting. Then I was testing the low light. I knew the results with the iPhone were great. So here we have a picture of a cheetah in our living room. So there's the 10x RAW, and look at the 10x JPEG. Pretty pixelated, right? I was shocked. I said, well, after seeing this, I have to shoot expert RAW. So I'm doing some more tests in even lower light. This is in my music room. On the top left, we have the 10x extra RAW shot. It looks nice and sharp. But I wanted to zoom in, again, to test the sharpness, 300%, and you can see it's sharp. But look down the bottom, the tremendous difference with the 10x JPEG. And when you zoom in, it's a mess. It's a mess. So I would suggest with the iPhone and with the S23, well, I don't even have to tell you, you have to shoot RAW. So all this testing paid off. We go to Tanzania, and we saw this beautiful cheetah late in the afternoon. He posed for me, nice light in the eyes, and then we have nice little interaction there going on in the bottom. I think someone's mic is on, because I think we're hearing some static. So I think someone has to mute their mic. So anyway, we're driving along and we see these this lioness on the right and the two little cubs there. Once again, you can see the whiskers there. And I talked about zooming in and using the upsizing program. We're driving around and we see this beautiful animal on a mound, and I was able to zoom in and get this shot. I also replaced the sky in Photoshop using the sky replacement tool. So here's a comparison. Over on the left, I photographed these leopard cubs with my mirrorless camera and 100 to 500 millimeter zoom lens. And I photographed this leopard on the right with the Samsung S23 coming down a tree. I mean, first of all, we're really, really lucky in both of these situations, but that we could see the whiskers and do all this is just cool. So here's Susan. She took this picture of me over there on the Oregon coast. So, you know, the iPhone offers so much flexibility, spontaneity, versatility, portability, creativity, pro quality results, and fun. Plus, there's no memory cards, you know, as you know. And this is really was one of my iPhone turning points. I teach at a workshop on the Oregon coast there. And everyone has set up their cameras. There's you see really right stuff, tripod in the foreground and other cameras and lenses. And everyone abandoned me and they're around Susan because she took a picture, she's processing it, and she's uploading it. She's uploading it, you know, to Instagram like in a second. So Susan has really been a big influence on me. And in the new book that Kevin mentioned, which really debuted just today on Amazon, several of Susan's pictures are in the background. The Costa Rica pictures in the image on the right, on the palm tree is her iPhone shot. And then in Africa, she took this picture of this tree where we saw a bunch of lines. So this is really a fun book, and as Kevin said, it has a strong conservation message, and we're using animals as our ambassadors. What the book is about is the reader travels to different locations with the animals. Like over on the left there, you see animals from Africa are going to, you know, an icy location and learning about the habitat there and then bringing it back and sharing the news. So we're talking about, you know, getting really sharp shots and upsizing and sharpening and taking out the noise and all that stuff. And that's really important. But I really like this expression by Yo-Yo Ma. He says, expression is more important than perfection. So we live in the world of pixel peeping, where everyone's zooming in. They got to zoom in like 800% to make sure they have no noise, that everything's sharp. Well, we don't always need to do that. And I was watching Yo-Yo Ma's masterclass. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. You don't have to like classical music to learn a lot about art and expressing yourself and creativity. He said he was playing a concert and he realized halfway through the concert, he was playing it perfectly. No one on the planet could play it better than him. And he was totally bored. And he said that's when he realized that he has to play with more expression. So, you know, I mentioned before that mood matters most, and that's kind of like the same thing. Yeah, we could pixel peep, we could do this, we could have the best lens, we could upsize, but really think about that. So here's an example. On the left there, Cartier-Bresson, this is probably his most famous picture. You can look at this. I think it's an amazing picture. It was an amazing picture at the time. It's an amazing picture now. But the guy's a little blurred, you could say. You know, his head's lost in the background. The sky's overexposed. So technically, it's not perfect, but it's an amazing picture. Susan took this picture of me. She was channeling a Bresson, again, over on the Oregon coast, where we spent a lot of time and is a perfect place for a smartphone photography. But in going through this presentation and going through your pictures and when you're out there photographing, I really encourage you to think about that expression. That expression is more important than perfection. And again, I want to encourage you to have fun with apps. I took this picture on the bottom left there last week in my rowboat. It wasn't the greatest day, but I like to get out, and it was a little chilly. It's January here. But look what I was able to do with Distressed FX. And you can take screenshots of this if you want, or you could watch it again. Distressed, or you could send me an email if you have a question. Distressed FX is one of my favorite apps. To put this texture on there. I was able to put the birds in there. And then I brought it into Photoshop Express, PS Express, which I mentioned before is one of my apps. And I was able to add the type and the frame in there. And check out these two pictures. Again, we're back on the Oregon coast. both of these pictures are super sharp. They have good color. They capture the action. They show the dynamic range of the scene. We're shooting into the sun, or basically into the sun at sunset. On the left is my digital SLR picture, 24105. And on the bottom right there is Susan's picture with her iPhone. This is another reason why I started to think, okay, I really have to get into this. So when you're shooting with the iPhone, it's really important. This is face rock again. Again, if you tilt your head on the side, you can see that it's a face. It's really important to they have beautiful sunsets, by the way, on the Oregon coast. So as Sam knows, it's on the West Coast. So you have beautiful sunsets. Sunrises, not so much. But anyway, we have this beautiful sunset here, but it's really important to expose for the highlights. So I shoot with my iPhone like I used to shoot slide film, meaning exposing for the highlights. So what I always do in a contrasty scene like this, I tap on the screen at the brightest part of the scene, which is that water in the back. And then I move the little sun icon up and down to fine tune the exposure so the highlights aren't blown out and I'm able to get a nice shot. This is the New Croton Dam again. And I did the same thing here. And again, mood matters most, but this also goes back to my one picture promise, that if you're in a situation, if you could only take one picture, what would that one picture be? So the picture on the left is a boring shot, I don't really like the angle, the water's frozen, but I saw that little tree. This was taken last year, and the tree, by the way, is still there. We saw it last week. I said, okay, that's the shot I want to work on. I'm going to follow my one picture promise. If I could take only one picture, what would it be? And it's that picture you see on the right. I knew I needed the Reheld app to get that slow shutter speed to blur the water. And then I changed the mood. I changed the tone by adding a blue tint to it. I also silhouetted the shot. So it's amazing, if you're in a boring situation like on the left, the artistic image that you can get if you just think about it. And I hope that one picture promise works. Now, again, with the Oregon coast, the weather changes just so quickly. In Iceland, there's an expression that it goes, if you think the weather's bad, wait 10 minutes, it'll get worse. Well, it doesn't really get that bad on the Oregon coast, but the weather does change. Also, if you go, make sure you check the tides. This is key because the tides change. At high tide, you probably can't get down. Let me see where Face Rock is. Well, you can't get close to Face Rock anyway. But anyway, there's a huge difference in the tides, and also bring rubber boots because you want to be able to walk through the tide pools and get shots like this. There's Face Rock again. You see these horizontal shots here. This is cropped square. One of the tips I have, and this was done all on the iPhone, and the tip is cropping gives us a second chance at composition. Picasso said something to the effect of art is taking out everything that's not necessary in a scene. And here there's boring stuff on the left and the right. So I'm thinking about composition and cropping all the time. Another great thing about the iPhone at the end with the wide angle lens, and the same thing with the S23, is that everything's always in focus, and we could change it later in Photoshop. We could blur the background. We could use object selection and do a reverse selection. We could do so many things in the digital darkroom. But anyway, cropping really does give us a second chance at composition. And again, gesture is important when we photograph people and animals, but also waves and sky. Up there on the left, it looks like, a squadron of planes, clouds are coming in like that. And I like the way they're going, to the right, and the waves are coming in they're going to the left, and the waves are coming in, to the right. But I also like the way it's scalloped there. The waves are like scalloped. So, think about composition. Here again, I'm exposing for the highlights. And again, I'm thinking about mood matters most. This is Newport on the Oregon coast. And I mentioned before that the iPhone and the S23, they're good for low light. Look at the data here. This is a 48 millimeter lens at 1/5 of a second. The image stabilization in the iPhone is amazing. I would challenge myself, I won't say, I would challenge myself to go here in low light with the 48 mm lens and shoot at a fifth of a second and get a really sharp shot. I mean, it's really cool. Another place, if you go to the Oregon coast, the other pictures were taken on the Oregon coast. This is a Cannon Beach. This was just so much fun photographing this beautiful sunset. There were fires there. And here I'm thinking about the reflection. And when you're photographing the reflection, sometimes actually for people who wear glasses, they miss the reflection in the bottom of the frame because they're peering through the viewfinder. So what I'm doing here, I'm not removed from the scene. I can still enjoy the scene. And I'm looking at the reflection because I don't want any part of that reflection being cut out. I mentioned art before. This was taken here in my studio where you saw me before, and you'll see me at the end of this presentation. This was some fruit that we had set up. And here's the behind the scene shot. Here I have my iPhone. I'm using I have it on a Platyball, on a Platypod Extreme Grip, and two lights there. So on the left there, you see the behind the scenes. Actually, on the right, you see behind the scenes too. But this is a fun thing to do on a rainy day. Say you can't go to Antarctica or the Oregon coast, or you just want to hang out at home. This is a fun project to try to create art in your studio, in your office, in your kitchen, wherever. Because I think it's kind of cool that you can do this. I have to thank Susan Sammon for arranging that. Here's another fun thing I do. I mentioned before that I play guitar, and piano. Some of you know that, but I have my iPhone on one of these Platypod goosenecks, and I use this for teaching. So what I can do is I can play, and then I make some videos and stills. And look how sharp this picture is. But this is a great teaching tool. And as Kevin mentioned before, I really do love teaching. I really do love sharing it. It's like a ton of fun. So Platypod is having a sale. They can save $100 on the Platypod. You can shoot over to the Platypod site and check that out. Also, I set up a Facebook group for smartphone photographers like myself and like you. It's called the Smartphone Photo Experience. You could check that out. It's a great place to get inspired and to share your pictures. And if you want to, discover your voice, I mentioned before that I tell people that my specialty is not specializing. Well, not everyone does that. So you see this book is by Rick Sammon and the All-Star Photo Mentors. So I have about 20 people who contributed to this book to help you discover your photograph and artistic voice, which is a lot more important than buying a new piece of gear or pixel peeping. I told you I was going to take you to Death Valley. Susan was channeling Ansel Adams when she took this picture on the right. This is his book, which I recommend. I recommend reading his book. You can still get it. The Negative, and another great one is The Print. A lot of the same principles, believe it or not, apply to image making. Not about, the darkroom stuff, the technique, but the ideas still apply. But look at in his picture, he has everything in the scene in focus. In Susan's picture, she has everything in the scene in focus, and she's composing in what we call layers. So, we see the world in 3 dimensions, height, width, and depth, whereas a camera only sees height and width. So one of our jobs as a photographer, no matter what camera we use, is to try to create a sense of depth and dimension in a picture. So she has, if you look at the bottom, she has that shadow layer. She has a layer of the sand dunes there. Then she has another layer. And then the back, the darker layer. And then she has actually the mountains in the back. So all these layers create a great sense of depth and dimension in your picture. And everything in the scene is in focus. And we can see every grain of sand. So these were actually taken in 2014 when we were in Antarctica. The penguin on the left is on a penguin highway, and there's Susan Sammon, was always smiling with her iPhone. So it is kind of fun that she could get the same kind of pictures she got the same kind of pictures that I got. My pictures, actually, I forget which one is my picture. My picture's on the left and her picture is on the right. You can't tell the difference because she understands composition. She understands light. She sets the exposure. She watches the background. She knows the background is just as important as the subject. So We have to remember that if you're not shooting RAW, the iPhone pictures, it's called computational photographers. The pictures are processed. So it's always HDR if you're not shooting RAW. Look at the picture on the top left. This is taken at Olana, the home of Frederick Church, who was a famous painter in the Hudson River School of Painters. He also did amazing pictures of icebergs in Antarctica. But anyway, we could see inside and out. We have the beautiful portrait mode. A picture you saw of me in the beginning, Susan took with the in the portrait mode. I photographed this Maasai woman, this young woman in the portrait mode. The picture on the bottom left, that's HDR. That's why you can see into the shadows, and the highlights aren't overexposed and blocked up. And the same thing with the rainbow. How lucky was that on our river walk? So anyway, it's really important to remember that it is computational photography. And think about that wide dynamic range. Again, if you're not shooting RAW, if you shoot RAW, you can pull out the shadows and the highlights, just a little more work. But it is really, the phone is amazing in low light. And I do love these apps. Photoshop Express is one of my fun ones. So here are the straight shots, and I put this fun type on the picture on the left and on the right. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about settings, getting away from the most important thing, mood matters most, and expression is more important than perfection. You know, I have my camera set up for, you know, the high efficiency files, and I'm shooting the raw files. So here's the thing. In a picture like this, if you're going to publish this on the web or make a print, you might not notice it. But you get a little closer and you start to notice it. And you get even closer. Look at the raw file on the left. If you're looking at this on your big monitor, you'll be able to see the difference. It's pretty sharp. And look at the iPhone JPEG, the HEIC files. You know, it starts to get a little broken up around the silver plating there. Now, again, I'm pixel peeping. If I publish this picture, you really wouldn't be, probably wouldn't be able to tell. It's a Paul Reed Smith guitar, by the way, for you guitar players. And here's another example of the big difference. And I like to show this difference because I like to reinforce the difference between the RAW files and the JPEG files. These pictures are cropped, but the picture on the left, you can see all the hairs are sticking up on the top of the kitty cat's, you know, on the top of his head. And look how they're all blurry. And look how the whole cat is blurred on the right. So shooting RAW is really important, which is what I did here. And this is the close-up mode. You know, that you could take this kind of picture with the iPhone. And here, I mentioned before that we could blur the background. So with the iPhone, even in the close-up mode, you have really tremendous depth of field. So what I did is I selected the subject and I blurred, and then I did an inverse in Photoshop and I blurred the background. These drops of water that you see are mist. This picture was taken at a place called Butterfly World in Coconut Creek, Florida, and they have a misting machine. So you could see like almost every drop of mist. You can see the little hairs. You can see the antennas. So, and you know, Ansel Adams, getting back to him, said a picture's not done until you darken the edges. Well, I like that expression, but also blurring the edges draws the attention towards the subject. So the close-up mode really rocks. But this was my big iPhone turning point, Go to Tanzania last year with Susan. This is in Ngorongoro Crater. This is amazing, by the way, to be, you know, this close to the animals, see this vast, you know, expanse of wildlife and scenery. Anyway, I had my 15 to 35 and my 24 to 105 with me. And because Susan was shooting with her iPhone, I never took them out. I had them like right next to me in my camera bag. This is an iPhone shot. So the iPhone has replaced my macro shots, my macro lens, my 15 to 35, and now the S23 has replaced for most of my wildlife photography. I am going up to Alaska in March. We have room for one person on that trip. I am taking my my Sony stuff with the 200-600 millimeter lens, because those bald eagles I want to get are going to be flying really fast. But look at the sharpness of this picture. Look at the depth of field. And I mentioned gesture before. I think what makes this picture, for me anyway, is the wildebeest on the left there. He's just going a little bit away from the rest of the herd, but you have a little bit of gesture in his leg there. So I picked my wildlife pictures based on gesture. And the portrait mode, this looks like it's not perfect. And this is one of the things I like to talk about when I talk about expression versus perfection. Those of you who have tried this know that it's a little, and you can probably see here, it's a little blurry around the edges of her little hat there and around the back of her, this beautiful beads that she's wearing. But heck, I love the shot. She loved the shot. Her parents loved the shot. And I think it's a cool shot. And here's the regular shot. So I was in the portrait mode, and with the iPhone 15, you don't have to be in the portrait mode to take a portrait shot. You could do this now after the fact. So here I chose a stage lighting, but you could also choose a stage lighting mono. And I have another one here. And then we have a high key, not so much, but it might work for some subject that you have, or you might like that. And here's the difference. On the left, I blurred the background here. If I go back to the original, let me see if I have here. It is a little blurred, but I blurred it a little more to make the subject stand out. And the one on the right is that I really like. So again, it's not perfect. You'd get sharper edges with a $500 $1,500 portrait lens, but for me it's fine. Then I of course went back to Photoshop Express and I made like a fun cover. And then we were down in the Keys afterwards, down in the Florida Keys, because we like to get out of the cold here in the winter. And you're able to do so many things there, not only add type, but we created a fun collage. So with that portrait mode, I don't only use it for portraits. I use it for flower photography, how it darkens the background. It's just so cool. It's so much fun. For me, it's just so much more creative. A picture on the left, it's not the same shot, but it's taken at the same time. It's nice enough. It's pretty, but it doesn't have impact. I have a friend who, when I teach a workshop, the first thing I ask the people on the workshop, I say, "What's your goal?" And my friend says, "My goal is to make images with impact." And he says, if the image doesn't have impact, if it's not going to have impact, I'm not going to take the picture. If I think I can process it and it's not going to have impact, I'm not going to do it. Well, with all the processing, look what you can do from basically a boring snapshot on the left to a picture with impact. So the portrait mode is really cool. And I mentioned The Print by Ansel Adams before, that book, which I do recommend. And I was channeling him when I took this picture. I like the way he has this flower, highlighted in the center of this of the book cover there in the picture. And I was able to create that and I also did a lot of burning and dodging. Ansel Adams is the master of burning and dodging. So, I darkened some of the areas and I lightened some of the areas. So in Africa, this is a panel. This is on top of Ngorongoro crater. So we're down in the middle of this crater by lakes. But the panels are just amazing. And again, I didn't take out my 15 to 35 or my 24 to 105 because I was able to get shots like this. And this guy just come out from under the vehicle and he looked around us. And I might have missed this. With the big camera. But here I didn't have to think about aperture, shutter speed, of the ISO. And what I really like about this picture is the shadow. There's an expression: shadows are the soul of the picture. Shadows are your friend. Shadows add a sense of depth and dimension. Light illuminates, shadows define. I think that's all the quotes I have about shadows. But it's really cool that we can just shoot beautiful, beautiful sunrises. But some people missed this shot and it looked flat because they didn't expose for the highlights. Like I said, here I tapped on the on the bottom right of the screen, and I moved down the exposure so the highlights weren't overexposed and washed out. They have these beautiful acacia trees in Tanzania and in Kenya. Kind of a boring shot, but look what I was able to do with my favorite app, one of my favorite apps, Distressed FX. I was able to add some nice texture to the sky and add these birds in there while we're driving around in the safari vehicle. Because when you're driving around in the safari vehicle, it's usually not nonstop action. It's usually like a lot of waiting. You saw a picture of the beautiful Maasai woman before. They have these jumping contests there, who could jump the highest. So the first time I was there, like 10 years ago, I had my film camera, I had the motor drive, then I went back with my digital SLR, and I'm shooting on, the rapid frame advance. Here, I'm shooting with my iPhone on the burst mode. And there's a couple of ways you could do this. You go to your settings, camera, and this is with the iPhone 14, but you could do it on the new phone too. And you could use a volume up for the burst button. So in other words, you just hold the volume up button and you can get that burst. But this is really cool.
Hello.
Did you call me 2 times?
Where were you?
Okay, I think we have to mute that person. Anyway, this is really cool. I don't know if anyone else heard it. Anyway, yeah, okay. I think there was something going on in the chat there. Anyway, with the new phone, you just tap the button and you swipe left for the burst mode, for the still, so you don't have to do that. And if you swipe right, you get the video mode. I mean, Apple is making it so easy. And if you hold your vertically, you basically you do the same thing. You swipe it up and you swipe it down. But this is really, really cool. And speaking of the burst mode, I shot these butterflies also at Butterfly World in the burst mode. These butterflies were trying to mate. Actually, one guy was trying to mate with a female. Anyway, I was able to guess this with the iPhone and capture, I was able to, capture this sequence, which I think is kind of cool. And getting back to Tanzania, when I was there, they wanted some pictures for their brochure. In the past, I would have brought a tripod and the big camera and things like that. All pictures with the iPhone, great in low light and great in bright light. I was teaching a workshop out in White Sands, which is a really cool place. If you haven't been to White Sands, it's really a great place for landscape photography. All these people are setting up their tripods and, they're getting great shots. They're getting, awesome shots, but they are carrying around heavy backpacks and tripods, getting sand stuck in the legs of their tripods. And I'm just hand holding, again, getting down low. I'm big into what's called the photo cross training. What you learn in one area, you can apply to another area. So I showed you the penguin pictures at the beginning of the little presentation here, the webinar, where I said you get down low, use your camera like a spaceship. Here I'm getting down low. I'm just not shooting straight at, because I'm looking for, again, following my one picture promise. What's the one picture I would take if I were there? And this is it. And we were so lucky. We were so lucky to get these beautiful, beautiful sunsets. It's not snowing there. That is actually the white sand of White Sands. But once again, I'm exposing for the highlights. So one of my philosophies is, I'm usually happy with my landscape pictures. I'm usually happy, 95% of the time, getting back to the perfection thing with my iPhone pictures, especially with a landscape. This is our river walk again on the left, and that's Olana. I showed you. If you're in the New York area, by the way, Olana is an amazing place for photography. Also, Frederick Church, I mentioned they have some of his pictures there from around here and Antarctica. But again, looking at the picture on the left, everything in the scene is in focus, and same thing on the left. And when I take a landscape or a scenic picture, I want the scene most of the time to look like it looks to my eyes. Everything in the scene in focus, right? We actually don't see everything in the scene in focus. Our mind tricks us in. If any people who are into the study of how we see knows this, our brain tricks us into thinking everything in the scene is in focus. But because it tricks us, I said, okay, this is what I want to do with my photography. Because if something's blurred, sometimes it works, and sometimes, most of the time for me, it doesn't work. Also, you see on the right there, I'm doing the layers again. I have the bench with foreground layer, that other bench in the middle layer, and then the trees in the background layer. So I was talking before about Reheld. You saw the picture of the dam, of the New Croton Dam. Live is pretty good, but it's and what you do is you have to set the camera for live, and you do that by touching on that little when I say the camera, set your phone, you have to touch on that little icon. You have to make sure that's on, and then you go to long exposure. So the picture in the middle is without live, and the picture on the right is live. It's okay. picture on the right, again, it's okay. But the Reheld app and the even longer apps, I mean, this is amazing that we can take pictures like this. And again, yes, I wanted to blur the water, but yes, I wanted to think about that mood matters most. And I wanted to think about what Ansel Adams said, that contrast is king. Now, this is the New Croton Dam. And on the left and on the right is taken on the top. Picture on the left was taken at the bottom. Picture on the right was taken at the top. And this is only about an hour from New York City, especially on the weekends where there's no traffic. Or you could take the train up and take a cab over. I mean, I go there so often, and this is one thing I'd recommend. If you want to get good at iPhone photography, mirrorless photography, digital SLR photography, any type of photography, go back to the same place over and over and over again and say to yourself, I'm not going to come home with the same type of picture. And that's what I do. I'm trying to go for different angles every time I go there. I'm trying to try different processing, different plugins or processing. So over on the left, I'm using the long exposure, and I go there all the different times a year. But on the right, I use Topaz Impression. This is one of my favorite. They don't make it anymore. Topaz Studio has something kind of like it, but I just love the way it made it like that painterly type effect. And I say this, that if a smartphone is good enough for Clive Butcher, you know, he's like the current day Ansel Adams when it comes to landscape photography. He's amazing. If you don't know about Clive Butcher, definitely do a search on him. He's the king. He's the king of cutting the clutter. He goes into, you know, these swamps in Florida, these cypress tree swamps that are basically, it looks like a compositional mess. And he pulls out these spectacular, dramatic pictures where the elements are separated and the clouds look great. Anyway, he's a wonderful photographer, and he's using the iPhone.